For millennia, mankind has dreamed of peace. As our global community continues to evolve, as technology closes the geographic gaps between cultures, we find ourselves more and more occupied with the notion of peace. How should it be fostered? What are its obstacles? And is a great peace, a peace for all the world, attainable? To some, peace on earth is not merely a possibility, it is an inevitability. Immediately within the grasp of mankind. This is the view of over 5 million people worldwide. People from all regions of the globe who have united under one banner, the Baha'i Faith.
The ultimate goal of the faith, the mission of this religion, is to bring about the unification of mankind, to unite the world as one common species.
You don't go to the Baha'i Center one day a week and then that's it, and then you just live the rest of your other life. You know, there's no such thing.
Baha'is think about the most great peace every day because this is really the time for unification.
Today the teachings are for the entire planet. Because of technology, we can now actually see that occur. We have the possibility of uniting the entire planet under these universal teachings.
This is what we're working towards.
The Baha'i religion is based on the teachings of a man titled Baha'u'llah, or Glory of God. To the Baha'is, he is not simply a spiritual leader, but the latest in a series of divine prophets, which included Jesus, Moses, and Muhammad. It was in Baghdad in 1863 when Baha'u'llah first identified himself as a direct messenger from God, with a vision for the unification of man. Less than 150 years later, the Baha'i Faith has grown into the second most widespread religion in the world. With over 5 million members worldwide, it represents an incredibly diverse cross-section of the globe. But in their brief and sometimes difficult history, we see just how troubled the road to peace can be. The story of the Baha'i Faith begins with a religious group known as the Babis. The Babis developed out of a Shiite Muslim belief in the Bab, or gate, a leader who would signal the impending arrival of the next divine savior. In 1844, a man named Ali Muhammad openly declared himself to be the Bab. Soon, surrounding Muslims were accepting the teachings of the Bab, and they became known as Babis. Their growth worried the Muslim leadership in Persia, and they worked to silence the Bab and his followers. The Bab was arrested and placed in a secluded prison to keep him isolated from the population. Despite his incarceration, the Babi population grew to nearly 100,000 in the late 1840s. In his writings, the Bab began to lay a groundwork for the Baha'i faith that was to follow. He said that God communicated to mankind through a series of divine messengers, beginning with Adam and continuing through Abraham, Moses, Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad. He stated that another messenger, he whom God shall make manifest, would follow after him. In his writings, the Bab also described how this religion would eventually supersede Islam, and this was viewed by the Shah as blasphemy against the Islamic faith. The government attempted to stamp out the Babis, and thousands of them were killed by the Persian army and fanatical mobs. In 1850, the Bab was executed by the Shah. Their hope was that the Baha'i movement would collapse without him. Two years after the death of the Bab, Baha'u'llah was arrested and spent 4 months in a Tehran prison. He was a member of a wealthy Persian family and a leader of the Baha'i Faith. His own writings vividly describe the experience of his imprisonment. During the days I lay in the prison of Tehran, though the galling weight of the chains and the stench-filled air allowed me but little sleep, still in those infrequent moments of slumber, I felt as if something flowed from the crown of my head over my breast, even as a mighty torrent that precipitated itself upon the earth from the summit of a lofty mountain. Every limb of my body would, as a result, be set afire. At such moments, my tongue recited what no man could bear to hear. After his release, Baha'u'llah was exiled to Baghdad. There, in 1863, he declared openly that he was next in the line of divine messengers, fulfilling the role set forth by the Bab. In 1868, Baha'u'llah was exiled once again and forced to live in Akka, a remote outpost of the Ottoman Empire, part of modern-day Israel. He lived there for the remainder of his life, writing the texts that would come to define the Baha'i Faith. During that time, Baha'u'llah also wrote a series of letters to the leaders of the world. In them, he announced the coming of a new era for mankind. He urged the creation of an international tribunal to act as a moderator between the different nations of the world. He also encouraged systems for unifying the nations of the world, including an international auxiliary language, compulsory education, and a decrease in military expenditures. Baha'u'llah continued to write until the end of his life. He revealed over 100 volumes, which comprise the basic scriptures of the Baha'i Faith. On May 29, 1892, Baha'u'llah passed away. The resting place for his body is considered by Baha'is to be the most sacred place on earth. At the time of his writings, the scope of Baha'u'llah's thinking was revolutionary. His vision for a unified world foreshadowed the coming institutions of the next century, with first the League of Nations and later the UN. For the Baha'is, the unity of mankind is not merely something to be hoped for. It is God's ultimate plan for humanity.
Everything that is necessary physically, technologically, is here to establish world unity and do away with wars, do away with hatred, prejudice.
You know, these are actually principles that people really do want. You know, I've never met anyone that said that they didn't want peace or that they didn't want unity achieved.
Mankind will make this happen. We are guaranteed that world peace will come about. In fact, Baha'u'llah promises something more than our current image of world peace. He promises the most great peace, where not only do we cease war, but the full range of human potentials will be discovered during these 1,000 years. We'll begin a new era of understanding and of human development, the like of which we have never seen before.
The Baha'is see this transition to world unity as inevitable, and this surety plays an important role in Baha'i life. Their methods are for encouraging world peace, hoping to improve the world around them until the day when unity finally arrives.
To say something is inevitable does not mean it's easy, or that it would just come about automatically. Just like when a child is growing, it's inevitable that they're going to get bigger and their skills are going to increase. It doesn't mean it's easy going from a teenager to an adult.
One of the common notions that's unfortunately has prevailed in the world is that many people believe that war is necessary and will always be with us, that humanity is fundamentally warlike. The Baha'i Faith teaches that is not true, that humanity fundamentally in their makeup are peace-loving.
The society as a whole we see as going from adolescence, which is a very turbulent period where you're trying to find yourself, to, as a society, going from that adolescent stage to an adult stage, more mature. That transition from teenage to adult years for an individual is very difficult, and so is the society as a whole, going from one stage to another. But it's still inevitable, provided you survive it, that a teenager will become an adult.